It's been about a week since we learned of the ruling that the Canadian figure skating team from 2022 Beijing Olympics would not be getting a bronze medal. And of course, that has sent a shockwave across Canada, across the international figure skating community. And now we get the opportunity to speak to someone at the heart of all of it, Kirsten Moore-Towers, who was on the ice competing for Canada, joining us now. Wonderful to see you. Kirsten, let's start with this. What is your understanding, as we've been digesting this, that Canada is not being awarded a bronze medal?
Gosh, yeah. Hi. Well, first, pleasure to meet you virtually. It's our first time, I think. But yeah, I think I was surprised, like the rest of perhaps Canada, and definitely the people closer to this situation. Um, Disappointed, but unfortunately, we've seen a lot of decisions made in the past that have been a little bit of head scratcher decisions, things that don't always make sense. And so, from my perspective, um, based on the actual rule that the ISU has, it just doesn't, these, one of these things doesn't make sense. If the rule is in place and this ruling is in place, one of these things doesn't make sense together. And so I think it's a little bit confusing and disheartening for all that were involved. For sure.
The latest we understand on this file, Kirsten, is that Skate Canada is going to be appealing to ISU. Is there anything as we speak right now that you know about where that process is at? Because I know Mike Slipchuk and the entire team have been working really hard in the background, but what are you hearing from your fellow teammates and the Canadians right now?
You know what, Devin? Unfortunately, I haven't heard much. I admittedly have been doing other things and other work projects. I'm a coach now, and my students had nationals up until 2 days ago, and so the only thing that really I am aware of is that an appeal is likely to take place from both sides, Canada, and we know that Russia is appealing. We know that they're coming forward with a whole nother story now, as they often do. And so it just really it's disheartening. And for me, the biggest tragedy in all of this is, though I do believe an appeal is important, I think the big nightmare in this is that it likely will delay those teams that were on the podium from the start, from getting their medals. They've waited almost 2 years now, and I have lived experience in getting an Olympic medal. I was on the team event in Sochi, getting the silver medal. And for me, the medal doesn't mean near as much as the experience of standing on the podium. And so already it's a tragedy that those teams lost out on that experience. But now these appeals that I do believe should happen, at least from Canada's side, will likely then delay this further. And I just think this whole thing is such a mess that doesn't need to take place, especially from the perspective of a Canadian who has had it drilled. We've had it drilled into us from such a young age. You know, we talk about Valieva being a minor from such a young age. We have been just taught and taught and taught about what you cannot do and how closely and carefully you need to look into anything. I didn't eat a poppy seed bagel when I was competing because we're terrified of what may be in the poppy seeds on that bagel. We're scared to take cold medication, and so it just really is. It's unfair and it's disrespectful to the athletes that have been practicing this clean sport throughout the entirety of their lives, and really they're the ones being punished. This USA and Japanese team are being punished still for the actions of a minor and of her coaches.
Well, and to that point, Kirsten, you made the great point that the story has continued to change, and of course we saw and have learned of the lengthy CAS ruling on all of this, learning that Valieva said that maybe she ingested this through her grandfather's dessert, and CAS wasn't buying that. So that was their ruling. On the topic of the moment being robbed from you all, that there's this window every 4 years where Canadian figure skaters are elevated to this hero status, Kirsten. You know that. And when you have that window, when you have that moment of glory, to have a podium event, and I should point out, I'm talking to you on what would be the second anniversary of the medal ceremony in Beijing that still has yet to happen. Um,
Wow.
you're robbing more than just that medal moment. You're robbing sponsor endorsement deals, money involvement, and all of it. This is life changing stuff. Maybe give us some context on that.
Absolutely, you're right. And gosh, how crazy that it's the 2 year anniversary. I just can't believe it. But you're absolutely right. And relevancy in sport is fleeting, right? And for so many athletes, for all athletes, it's their livelihood. Really, their whole life goes into these 6 minutes that we spend on a competition stage, and once every 4 years at the Olympics. And there's so much ricochet from a medal winning athlete in the years to come. And again, that's so fleeting. The window is short. And dependent on what you want to do with that and where you want your career to go, this would have been life changing for a lot of athletes that didn't get that opportunity. And again, I just want to reiterate that the United States team and the Japanese team were standing in line for their medal ceremony. And I cannot tell you how exciting it is to stand in line and get ready to step on the podium. And we know the United States team should have heard their national anthem, and just to be robbed of that experience, and then also to not know if you're going to get one in the future,
Hmm.
is just, it's devastating. Truly, it's in my opinion, it's really a tragedy. And um that seems like an aggressive statement, maybe, or an overreaction. But for athletes, this is our life. This is everything that we've worked for, and you wait for it for those just few minutes. Um, and again, it comes and goes so quickly that I there's no telling what kind of missed opportunities all of these athletes will have had, and we'll just never know. And it's really truly unfortunate.
Heartbreaking, no doubt. You poured your life into this sport, and when I look at social media, when I read the comments on this ruling, specific to the Canadians not getting bronze, there's this mix of frustration, anger, heartbreak, but also kind of this sentiment of, well, it's figure skating. And there's a lot of cynicism around that. So maybe just a point from your perspective on the sport you love, and yet that you understand that moments like this jeopardize and compromise the integrity of the sport, and that there's so much beauty in this, and yet
Mm.
moments like this take away from it, Kirsten.
Absolutely. I am such a skating fan at heart. I love skating so much. I still work so much in figure skating, and I think that I will for the rest of my life. But it is so difficult to stand behind a sport when this is the ruling that's in front of you, because truly it looks like a joke. It's making a mockery of not only that Olympics, but the hard work that all of the athletes put in to go to it. And not to mention, we knew who was tested positive before the women's event in Beijing. So, not perhaps as relevant for me as a pair skater, but for those women competitors in that competition, it's a joke for them. They're sitting in the change room and thinking, why have I worked my whole life every day for countless years? Why have I done this my whole life cleanly and correctly, the right way everything's supposed to be done, if not everybody does that and they still get to compete anyway? And of course, the correct decision is made. The result has changed. That is correct. Truly, that's correct. But I want to read this, Devin, because I wrote it down
Hmm.
before. It says,
Please do. Yeah.
ISU's Rule 353, which states that competitors having finished the competition and who initially placed lower than the disqualified competitor will move up accordingly in their placement. So we saw that happen in the women's event. We saw that happen from Europeans. Where we didn't see that happen was in the women's portion of the team event. So Kamila won that event. Now she's removed and nobody wins. It just doesn't make any sense. And it becomes very difficult, as you mentioned, even as somebody who loves the sport so much, becomes very difficult to stand behind it when there are these discrepancies and these things that don't make sense. I can't argue that point. I don't have a leg to stand on, which makes it
Hmm.
very difficult.
I mean, when you read it out, and everybody's been pointing to exactly what you just shared with us, the ISU quite simply is not following its own rules. So more to come on that, no doubt. And as you say, this ship has sort of sailed the moment of glory, and yet you still hope they come to the right decision to maybe restore some level of faith in the entire system. Kirsten, maybe some words on this team. Canadians have always supported our Canadian skaters, but maybe just a word on the team, because you all played a role in competing in that event.
Absolutely. And I think the Beijing Olympics being my third one, I had a couple of experiences to compare it to. But as we know, the Beijing Olympics were so unique in that they were a COVID Olympics. And we know that the Federation worked so hard to keep us safe within that. And I think through that unique experience, a team really bonds in a way that perhaps is different from the times before it, because typically there you have family around and friends, and Beijing was quite isolating at times. And I think we relied on each other to know how to navigate through that situation. And though it was a difficult Olympics, definitely my most difficult, there were teammates on that team that I relied on, and who I know relied on me to help us all get through. And I look back on it fondly, and I hope that this ruling and this decision doesn't change how my teammates look back on it as well. I hope that everyone, Madeline Skizas was such the star of that team event, and I know that that was only her Olympics, her only Olympics to date. I hope there will be more for her, and I hope that she and our other teammates will look back on this with a fondness that doesn't have anything to do with all of this surrounding stuff.
That is a beautiful sentiment, no doubt, that whether the bronze happens, whether they right the wrong, that this can't taint the experience that you all had. And so that would be sort of where I would want to leave things off. Kirsten, is what would a bronze medal in all of this mean? Would it change things at all for you, other than to say they were actually willing to admit a wrong?
I think, you know what, I think you said it, Devin. I think that is where the importance lies. For me, if I'm being truthful, I don't think 2 years out of the competition, I don't think a bronze medal changes a lot in my life. It would be fantastic. I would love to share that experience with my partner, Mike. I think the bigger win would be that we saw a rightful decision take place, and a wrong decision corrected. I think sometimes that can be harder to do than to just, it's definitely harder to do than to just make the right decision in the first place. And I think a lot of figure skating athletes would feel some sort of relief and comfort from knowing that sometimes people make mistakes, and we can correct them and move forward. We're humans. We're all humans. We're all trying to do the right thing. This is an impossible situation, but unfortunately for a lot of athletes who have done things the right way their whole career, it feels very black and white. And so I hope that is rectified.
Brilliant context from you, Kirsten, about what this all means, what's at stake. Not only this isn't just sport has never just been about the gold, silver, bronze. There's so much more at play, and that certainly is the case. And it certainly feels like this might be one of those line in the sand moments in figure skating where, if you can't get this right, how do you move forward in the wake of all of this? So yes, finding Valieva guilty of the doping infraction is one thing, but then getting it right after that is a whole other thing. And I think that's certainly what's at stake. And I think you've articulated that in a brilliant way. Anything else that you wanted to add that I might not have asked you about this experience and just sort of the distaste of all of this?
I think moving forward, we need to take a good look at the superiors in these situations, because I don't have any experience training in any other country than Canada. I've spent my whole life training in my native country, and I don't know what it's like to be a Russian athlete, but I believe that we need to take a good look at the superiors, especially when there's a minor involved, because it doesn't feel fair to only punish the athlete. I absolutely think that the athlete should be punished for doping, especially considering what I said about us knowing from a very young age what we can and cannot do. But I absolutely think we need to take a closer look at the system, because it's just another facet of tragedy within this whole situation.
What a measured and thoughtful conversation. I'm so grateful for your perspective, Kirsten. 13 years on the national team. You poured your life into it. You continue to give back to the sport of figure skating. Canadians have always been so proud of you, and I know when they see this, they're going to be just as proud as all the times you were on the ice. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.